Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. I'm gonna start walking. See you later, mate. See you later. What the hell is this? What?
Australia might have its share of problems right now, but spare a thought for our cousins across the ditch. As of Sunday, the national average unleaded petrol price in Australia had leapt to $1.98 per litre, 17 cents above the 12-week average. In New Zealand, though, the situation is even more dire, with prices this week averaging $3 New Zealand dollars, about $2.50 in Australian dollars. And economists warning Kiwi motorists could soon be staring down $4 New Zealand dollars a litre, or $3.30 in Australian dollars. So why is New Zealand petrol so expensive? Aside from the US and Israel's war in Iran, which has led to the closure of the vital Strait of Hormuz due to drone and missile threats, prices in New Zealand are much higher than Australia on average, largely due to a higher tax burden, which accounts for roughly half the cost of filling up a tank. Kiwis not only pay a higher national fuel excise than Aussies, but they also fork out levies for an emissions trading scheme, accident insurance, as opposed to Australia's CTP scheme paid at registration, and 15% GST, which, unlike Australia's 10% GST paid on the final price, is paid in addition to all other levies. We spoke to Gareth Kiernan, who is a chief forecaster at Infometrics, and he told us on average New Zealand fuel prices should rise about another 20 cents based on the current oil price of around $100, which had not fully come through quite yet. If crude oil hits $150, motorists would easily be paying over $4 New Zealand dollars a litre, according to Mr. Kiernan, while an oil price of $200 would see fuel prices hit $5 New Zealand dollars, more than $4 Australian dollars. Predictions for how much oil price increases will flow through to the pump depend on assumptions for refining margins. Westpac said last week the margins had already lifted from $20 to around $35 a barrel, driving up prices at the pump. Murat Ungor, an economist at Otago University, told One News if crude oil reached $130 to $140 per barrel and stayed there for 3 to 4 weeks, petrol prices could easily move into the $3.50 to $3.70 range. To break the $4 barrier, we would likely need a combination of extreme factors, such as crude sustained at $140 to $170 per barrel, matching or exceeding the record highs of 2008, or such high prices combined with a weaker New Zealand dollar and higher shipping margins, he said. Finance Minister Nicola Willis last week said New Zealand would consider fuel rationing or driving restrictions under emergency powers dating back to the 1970s oil crisis. Ms. Willis said such restrictions, which in 1979 and 1980 included so-called carless days, when owners could not use their vehicles under penalty of heavy fines, would only be needed if we were seeing genuine disruption to our ability to get fuel. Energy Minister Shane Jones said there was about 50 days' worth of fuel in or on its way to the small nation of 5.3 million people, which imports 100% of its refined fuel after the closure of its last refinery at Marsden Point in 2022. There are even fears surging fuel costs could tip the long-suffering New Zealand economy back into a recession. New Zealand's economy is currently crawling out of a prolonged period of post-COVID stagnation, with annual growth sitting at 1.3%. The Reserve Bank of New Zealand has aggressively cut the cash rate since last year down to 2.25%, with inflation now sitting at 3.1%, just above its target band, and unemployment rising to 5.4%. New Zealand's central bank was largely blamed for plunging the country into negative growth in 2023 and 2024, a period often characterized as a shallow recession after a series of eye-watering rate hikes intended to curb out-of-control inflation sparked by a flood of COVID stimulus. If I was to characterize the recession, it was a flipping long one, said Mr. Kiernan, who said there was now definitely the risk of a repeat.
We're gonna become broke, guys. What our lime scooter days and shit is coming back 2026.